Hello. Hospital Port's pride and dignity stopped the New World Order. Welcome to Paranormal TV. Well, I have returned to the sexiest place in Oxford, and I thought that was a good position perhaps to start what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to take you on this little filming tour of Oxford. Now, I've been promising to do this for a long time, and some of you have asked me to do this, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to show you the places of paranormal interest in this city, or at least part of the city where you can access easily publicly. There's a lot more you can see, and I may be able to do a follow-up to this particular video, but basically we'll go on all the areas that are related to public street. And there's all kinds of ways you can find out about this. This book has been very, very useful to me, Paranormal Oxford by Ross Andrews, but it's by no means the only source of information on this particular subject. There are many, many others, and in fact I've gone with several of them, including some of my own experience and some of what people have told me. So I'm going to do that in a moment. So we're just going to head off, and just the energy of this place, I just better not hang around too near because of the energy of this place. You know how it is. Look at that, yeah, look at that. Look at that huge penis there sticking up into the sky. Ever seen anything like that? And how about that there? Oh, that looks very warm and wet. I'd love to slide into that. I better get out of here, it's getting to me. X marks the spot, or cross rather. Quick 360. Yes, indeed. We are at Broad Street in Oxford, and I suppose the kind of paranormal activity I'm going to focus on today is what I would think of as the kind of more interesting one, meaning not sort of like some old lord from the Civil War who walks along with his head under his shoulders where it got cut off, or something dramatic like that. It's more things that I think are perhaps of interest to scientific parapsychology. Now, what you just saw at the beginning, the cross-shaped object in bricks on the road, it marks a spot, a very special spot. Now, the thing about it, I suppose, what are ghosts? That's the point. What are ghosts? I think that little cross-shaped object in the road might be relevant here, because we don't necessarily know exactly what ghosts are. They may actually be more than one phenomenon, which we have categorised generically under this umbrella term of ghost. But they exist. That's no doubt about it. Despite protestations to the contrary by the skeptics, I've got no doubt they exist, and I have looked at both sides of this issue. One of the things for sure, what you might call spooky activity is often associated with drama and pain and fear and death. Lots of negative energy. This is certainly the case why, as I've said in previous videos, hospitals appear to be top of the list for places where ghosts are seen. Other places, for instance, murder scenes, battlefields, anywhere where there's a lot of human misery, a lot of pain, a lot of fear, and a lot of death. And where we are now is one of those places. And I think perhaps what happened here almost 500 years ago, a long time ago, but it still happened, and I think it still maybe affects the etheric makeup of the city today. I think it might well have had some kind of influence on what followed in terms of the various paranormal activity you get in this area. What happened in the year 1555? There was an event here in which 3 men were burned to death publicly on the street. They were 3 bishops, Cranmer, Latimer and Ridley, and they're known as the Oxford Martyrs. And I'll turn the camera around so get a bit more, so the sun's come out. Basically this was during the reign of Queen Mary, Bloody Mary as she was called, and the Counter-Reformation, where She basically tried to disestablish the Church of England and replace it with Roman Catholic rule. Now, in order to do this, she would force all members of the clergy had to convert to Roman Catholicism, and if they refused, that's what they got, burned. And so they were kept in prison for a couple of years, actually, these three guys, because they refused to recant from their Anglican beliefs. Now, they were kept in the Saxon Tower, which I'll show you in a minute. They were kept there for a few years while Mary deliberated on what to do with them. She wrote to the Pope a few times asking what should I do with these people. In the end, he gave her permission, I think, to burn them, and they were burnt at the stake on this spot. They were not all on the same fire. They were burnt one at a time. The last one, I think, he had to watch everything that was going on and know that his turn would be next. Burning at the stake is what you would call nowadays is known as a cruel and unusual punishment. By far. It's trying to imagine how painful it is. I mean, if you just burn your finger on a match or something, or a hot iron, you know how much that hurts. Well, imagine that over your whole body. I mean, you die from shock within seconds, but your last moments will be agonising. And this was done there was a huge there was a large crowd of people who were cheering on as the bishop screamed and writhed in the flames. Just knowing that, any disloyalty to the Queen would be, they could be next if they showed any disloyalty to the Queen. The nobles in particular were worried because they were the ones targeted the most. And of course, every year on October the 16th, there's the legend that you can actually hear the screams of the bishops at this spot. Things like, again, that's not sort of very, very scientifically relevant, I don't think, so I'm not going to take that particularly seriously. But it may have had an effect. It may have had an effect on what happened afterwards and some of the paranormal activity you get in this city. Some of which is very, very strange. Some of the paranormal activity in the city, I think, may be explicable in terms of real world or kind of physical world activities. And I'll talk a little bit about that because I've covered this in other films, but I'm going to go over it again just because I think it is relevant to this particular subject, the paranormal. So from Broad Street in Oxford, let's move on to my next location. Now this here is Corn Market. This is Oxford's busiest shopping street, and you can see here that that over there is St Aldate's, that's the street leading off there, and that there is Tom Tower, which is the tower of Oxford's Cathedral. And that also is very phallic looking, and as you can see underneath, it's even got a pair of testicles. You can see that there. See? It's very phallic, very phallic indeed, that building. I don't know if there's any domes nearby, I haven't checked, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a dome-shaped building near there somewhere. But this is... Now, I've been here before, because as I've said, this is Oxford's principal shopping area. And I came, this is actually Easter Sunday today, it's around about lunchtime. I thought I'd come here on Easter Sunday and it'd be all quiet, but of course there's no such thing as a quiet day in Oxford. So here I am amidst the crowds. Now, I suspect that certain things that people do, you're getting the sun on you. Is that better? Is that better? Yeah. I suspect... I'll turn this way, you can see the other end there, see, that's it. Now you can see the Saxon Tower. Do you see the Saxon Tower there? It's that big square building there. There. See it there? That is very old, that's pre-Norman, that is, and that's where the bishops Cranmer, Latimer, Ridley were held prisoner for a few years before they were burnt at the stake round the corner on Broad Street. Now, as I said, I believe that certain activities by people within this city has an effect on the etheric body of the area, and that could be the cause of some of the paranormal activity that's been observed in this city. And as I explained in my film The Oxford Zodiac, this could be related to things such as street symbolism and indeed the generation of sexual energy. I showed you at the start of this film, I showed you what I call the sexiest place in Oxford. I call it that because it has those twin sexual symbols. It has the male sexual symbol in the form of the tower, and that is St Mary the Virgin's Tower, and the Ratcliffe and the dome, which is a female sexual symbol, which is in the form of the Ratcliffe camera. And I discovered there was another set down on New Road, the old castle and Nuffield College Tower, and there's various other things. I mean, I talk about it in my film The Oxford Zodiac. I put a link in the description box to that. But things like that can have an effect on the etheric makeup of the city. There are a lot of mysteries associated with Oxford. There are a lot of there's activities that go on that are secret here and known only to the inner circle of the university, and are carried out only by the inner circle of the university. And I believe that some of that might also have something to do with the paranormal activity of this city, of this area, this region. Now, I showed you, I did a film called Oxford Secret Science. I've got a link in the description box to that as well, where I believe that, well, I talked a little bit about the Oxford Martin School and things like that, but I do watch it for details. Okay, I'm not going to repeat myself here, but do watch that film for details. But I do suspect that this kind of thing goes back much further than you might think. It's not a modern phenomenon. It goes back many, many years. Now, something strange happened here a few years ago. I think sometime in the 1990s. This whole area is refurbished. The pavements were pulled up there. The road. This is a pedestrian zone now. It used to be roads. It's been a pedestrian zone for a long time, but it was basically all redone. It was all, and there was a lot of digging, a lot of excavating went on down on this road. Now, it was actually closer up near Carfax. It was the other end of Corn Market, where I was showing you earlier, that something was found which caused a bit of a stir. Now, originally it was publicised. What happened was the workmen who were excavating the area found an underground vault. It wasn't very deep. It was only a few feet below the surface. But they found an underground vault, and it was reported in the Oxford Mail that this vault contained the bodies of about 6 people, dead body skeletons. They were just bones. And I thought, that's interesting. Archaeological phenomenon there. We're going to hear more about this. There's going to be a big archaeological investigation. No, it all went. What happened was the Bulldogs showed up. That's the university's police. Guys with bowler hats. You still sometimes see them around the place. See, bowler hat man, we know what you are really. You're a secret agent for the Bulldogs. I'm sorry. No. And so what happened was they put up big screens around it, like big wooden boards, like what builders use. And the Bulldogs were guarding the entrance to this area, and we never heard another thing about it. I came up to see what was going on, and these screens had already been put up. This was just a day later. And nothing was ever heard of it again. I can't remember exactly where it was. I think it was up. I'll just go up there. Just a minute. I'll just take you up to where I think it was. Okay, here to get the sun a bit now, so sorry about that. But it was in this direction. And it was up this end. I'll just show you more or less where it was. Because I remember seeing the screens they put up, and I remember thinking how weird it was that they'd done this. Does this actually help? Is the camera wobbling less actually now? Because I'm actually using the tripod. The tripod's not on the ground, but I think even having it, holding it, actually improves the steadiness of the camera. So what I might do is I might do that more often in future. Now, it was near this McDonald's. That's it, I remember it was near this McDonald's. It was just outside here. Around about here. It was just a bit further on. Just outside this moss shop. And the NatWest there. So HSBC. It was here. The vault's beneath the ground here, at least it was. I don't know what they did with it. But this is it. So, very, very strange. And this whole area was sealed off. Half this road was covered by wooden boards, guarded by the Bulldogs. Now, some of you might be familiar with this area, because this is where they had the anti-Trump protests. I should walk up here a little because there's a guy singing over there. See, he's pretty good actually. He's pretty good. you remember, this is where they had the anti-Trump protest a couple of months ago. I don't know if you remember that. It was over there at Carfax Tower. Now, this is where I had my doppelganger experience. It was on a Saturday. It was much busier than this, but I was basically standing around about here. Huge crowds all around me, bigger than today. Right on the crossroads here, where the real centre of Oxford this is. There's St Aldate's, there's High Street. And out of the crowds, this bloke appeared. Walked straight past me. This bloke just appeared out of the crowds, walked past me. He walked from this direction. He walked past me and off down Queen Street. He walked off in that direction. Never forgotten it. And the weird thing about this bloke, he wasn't dressed like me. He was dressed very differently to me. I'm generally a casual dresser, and I can smarten up when I need to. But this bloke was, he looked like me. He looked exactly like me. He was wearing a suit, tie, carrying a briefcase, nice shiny shoes. You don't have to see me like that. But his face and everything was just like me. Not just a little bit like me. I mean, sure, there are people who resemble others, coincidentally. I mean, you know, people, you know, the fact that I'm very like the Al Murray, the pub landlord, is very well documented. But this guy looked exactly like me. He was like looking in the mirror. And to this day, I thought, what would have happened if I'd followed him? Because I didn't. I was just dumbstruck. I didn't follow him. Should have followed him down Queen Street, and I didn't. Now, according to legends, like people like Percy Shelley and Abraham Lincoln, they saw their doppelgangers just before they died. Your doppelganger is a German word. It means you're walking double, and it's like a copy of yourself. Anthony Peake has talked about this a lot, and according to various Peake reports, it's a portent of your own death. It foretells your own imminent death. And so I was a bit worried for a while. I was very careful crossing the road on the way home, put it that way. As time went on, I relaxed a bit because I'm still here, aren't I? So maybe it wasn't that, but it was just really weird. It was a really weird experience. So now, that's not the end of it. We're going to go down the High Street now, and I'll show you a bit more. Oh, well, there's the big dick again. Enough to make any man feel inadequate. That's St Mary the Virgin's Tower. It's a bit ironic, really, considering. Let's give you a 360. There's the Queen's Lane Coffee House, established 1654, the oldest coffee house in the world. This is all the High Street, known as the High. And there's the Grand Cafe. Antiques on High. Yeah. So yeah, it's another interesting place. I'm just going to show you. I'm just going to turn the camera to the Queen's Lane's Coffee House again. Now, do you see? There's several people standing outside it. And what you've got to watch out for is a woman dressed in blue, because that woman, if you see her, go up and speak to her, she'll vanish into thin air. Now, this is one of the most unusual ghost stories I've ever heard, actually. Now, the book Paranormal Oxford I showed you earlier has made a mistake. I believe is a mistake. They talk about this, what's known as the Lady in Blue, but they say she's seen outside the Patisserie Valerie, which is just up the road there. Whereas I have it on authority that the place where the Lady in Blue is seen is outside the Queen's Lane Coffee House. Now these are very old. This one, the Magic Cafe there, that's also very old. I think that's almost as old. Yeah, the Queen's Lane Coffee House is ancient. Now, what's interesting about this? Now, this is a ghost that is seen quite often. Reports are quite common. And as I said, it appears in the form of a woman dressed in blue, and she's been seen, I believe, since for at least as long as the Queen's Lane Coffee House has been there. So at least since 1654, she's appeared at odd occasions. Now, she's always dressed in blue. This is why she's called the Lady in Blue, because the Lady in Blue, she's always dressed in blue clothing. But what's very interesting about this ghost, I don't know if this is completely unique, but I know it's highly unusual, is that the clothing she wears is not always the same. In fact, the clothing she wears, and indeed her hairstyle, and other things like makeup, for instance, tends to match the fashions of the time she's appearing in. So as I said, she's been seen for over 400 years. And obviously fashion's changed. You know, back in the 18th century she might have been seen wearing a blue crinoline and a wig, whereas in the 1920s she probably wore a blue pudding basin hat and maybe blue pearls around the neck. And in the 1960s she'd have worn a blue miniskirt perhaps. And in the modern age she wears modern clothes. Oh, that lady's wearing blue. She's not. That lady there. She's wearing blue. She's walking. No, I don't think that's her. No, because she's walking. No, the lady in blue stands still, doesn't move. And if you approach her and speak to her, she just vanishes. So that's what I always think about that when I'm walking past it, seeing if I can spot the lady in blue. Now, this is extremely unusual. It's like, because obviously if she appeared in old-fashioned clothes in the modern day, she'd stand out. She'd be immediately noticed by people. But she wears clothes appropriate to the fashions of the era in which she is appearing. Now, so that is extremely, I think that's extremely unusual. Very unusual indeed. I mean, who she is, nobody knows. Where she comes from, nobody knows. As I said, ghosts, we don't necessarily know what ghosts are. They're not necessarily the souls of dead people who are restless and walking the earth. Maybe some of them are that, but not all of them. So it may be something entirely different. It may be some kind of jinn or demonic presence, or an angel, an angelic presence. Like Flying Buffalo, the angel in my story, was arising, a novel of disclosure. So that's just a taste of what is available for the paranormal investigator in Oxford. Just make sure that's all right. Literally. So it's noisier than I expected. I said it's Easter Sunday, but it's still busy. Why that is, I'm not sure. It seems that paranormal activity seems to be more common in Oxford than in other areas. And Oxford's not a especially old place. Oxford didn't really start until maybe the 10th or 11th century. Like I say, the old castle is one of the oldest buildings. The Saxon Tower, again, you know, late Saxon period. So it's not an old city such, but it seems to be very, very special. It seems to have a very special place in the political world. I've discussed before when there's Rhodes House and places like that. It's very, very important in terms of being its educational facilities here. This is the world's primary Illuminati indoctrination centre. This is where more world leaders who serve the Illuminati in government will come, and in other places, corporations, the military, etc. More will come to Oxford for their indoctrination than anywhere else. Oh, you know, it's very famous. Bill Clinton, a couple of other people have been here. So it does seem to have that special aura about it. And I've described some of my own paranormal experiences, like the thing I saw down by the river. The stick man I saw. I'll put a link. Sorry, excuse me. I'll put a link in the description box of that as well. But that was very odd. That was very odd indeed. Now I don't know why that is. As I said, strange things go on here. People do weird things in Oxford, and I'm not just talking about students when they get drunk. I'm talking about within the university community itself. There are elite secret societies. There are elite activities in terms of both the occult and in heavy industrial scientific work as well, which goes covertly above or behind or beyond government regulation or oversight, let alone public perception. So that could be one reason for it. I mean, those bodies they found at Cornmarket. Why, if they were obviously there, they've been there a long time. They're very old. So why the cover-up? And it was a cover-up. Maybe it has something to do with some kind of occult activity which is connected to what goes on in this city in terms of the paranormal activity. Anyway, I'm going to see what else I can find and maybe take you to a couple of other places, and then we'll do a little bit of a follow-up video on this one, because I know there are some areas you can't necessarily get to from the public street, which are very, 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 very strange. I'll show you one right now. I'll show you one. Where's oh no, it's not. I was thinking about where I am. Yeah. Yeah. I'll show you one right now. Apologies. I couldn't. Shut up. I couldn't actually show you what I wanted to show you. I'll have to leave that for another video. I wanted to go into Balliol College and I can't get in. But what it was, I mean, there's Balliol College is infamous when it comes to the Bullingdon Club, and I know that's not a ghostly thing as such, but I sometimes wonder if perhaps the activities of various secret societies, including the Bullingdon Club, have an effect on the, as I said, the aura of the place. Now, the Bullingdon Club is very famous. It's a dining club for elite students. Famous members, of course, include David Cameron, Boris Johnson. There's a couple of other people. What's his name? The twat who does Question Time, Dimbleby. The Dimbleby brothers were members. There's many others. And it's recording, yeah. Basically, it's a weird. It's got a weird arrangement because basically the poorest student. I mean, I say poorest in purely relative terms here because none of them are poor. But the student with the least money has to pay for everything, and that includes the fines because they're famous for their antisocial behaviour. All of them have ASBOs, but of course they just get them deleted because their parents are so well connected. But we've heard a lot of activities to do with pigs and the Bullingdon Club. Well, it's not just pigs. Something really awful happened at Balliol College. There used to be a tortoise that lived there. The tortoise was about 150 years old, and I don't know how this tortoise had come into the possession of the college, but this tortoise was a female tortoise, and they called her Rosa Luxemburg, who was a German communist from the 1920s, but they named her after that. And anyway, the Bullingdon Club, well, no one knows, it's never proven, but it's likely the Bullingdon Club kidnapped Rosa Luxemburg and killed her. This tortoise that was so old and lived for so long, and used to wander freely around the lawn at Balliol College. They killed her. Can't prove that, it's alleged, but hey, look at these gargoyles up here. You can see these amazing grotesques up on the walls of Magdalen College. I'm going past Magdalen College now. Been in there. I've shown you in there. I've shown you the Oxford Reptilian. There'll be a link in the description box to that as well. Now, some of these, no one knows what all these are for. Some of them are caricatures of various characters from the college. Some of them are. There's a guy up. There's one person who's got holding their mouth as if they got toothache. But you get them on the old medieval cathedrals. And there's another big dick there, Magdalen Tower. So I hope you found that interesting. I could have shown you a lot more, and I will show you a lot more in future videos. Okay, until then, thanks for watching. Hospital Porters, pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.